The letter trembled in Emily's hands as the wind from the open window pushed cold air across the small Chicago living room. Her grandfather stood in the doorway, his face pale, his voice barely holding steady. "You weren't supposed to know like this," he whispered, watching her read the first line written in her mother's handwriting. Outside, the night pressed against the glass, but inside, the truth she had been shielded from for 25 years finally broke through. A truth her parents died protecting. A truth tied to a family she had never met, and a fortune they never wanted her to claim. As Emily slowly lifted her eyes from the letter, the phone buzzed beside the cake still waiting on the table. A number from New York, a message from a man who carried her blood, and the secrets her parents feared most. What he would reveal next would force Emily to confront a legacy built on betrayal, love, and sacrifice, one that could destroy her or set her free. Before we begin this emotional story, tell us in the comments from which city you are watching, and don't forget to leave your like to keep following us. The small living room in the suburbs of Chicago glowed with the soft warmth of evening lamps and the faint shimmer of birthday balloons taped above the couch. A simple happy birthday banner swayed gently every time a draft slipped through the window frame. Emily sat at the dining table, leaning forward slightly, her elbows brushing the edge of a white tablecloth. The candles on her cake flickered against her face, revealing tension she was trying hard to hide. Turning 25 felt like a milestone she wasn't ready for, a reminder of everything she'd lost and everything she still didn't understand about her past. Across from her, her grandfather Robert adjusted in his chair with a slow, careful breath. He held a beige folder on his lap, his fingers tracing the edge of it as if memorizing its shape. His blue sweater contrasted the seriousness in his expression, a look she had only seen a handful of times in her life. He placed the folder on the table between them with a weight that made Emily's shoulders stiffen. "Before you blow out those candles," he began, his voice steady but carrying an undertone she couldn't read, "there's something you deserve to know today." Emily frowned softly. "Grandpa? You're scaring me." "I'm not trying to," he said, though his eyes betrayed a different truth. "I should have told you years ago." He flipped open the folder with gentle hesitation. Inside was a thick document, crisp and formal. At the top, in clean, bold print, were the words, "Trust Fund." Emily's breath stuttered. Her hands flew instinctively to her mouth, palms pressing against her cheeks. For a heartbeat, she couldn't speak. Robert watched her reaction quietly, the way a man watches a storm approach, unable to stop it, praying it won't destroy what remains. This is mine?" she managed. "It's been yours since you were a child," he answered. His fingers tightened around the folder. "Your parents created it. They didn't want you to know about it until you were older." Emily blinked hard, her eyes burning though she refused to let tears fall. The room suddenly felt too small, too warm. Why would they hide something like this from me? Robert exhaled, his gaze drifting toward the window before returning to her with a quiet ache. "Because it wasn't just money. There's a story behind it, a truth they carried and I carried after them." He slid a sealed envelope from beneath the documents and placed it gently in front of her. "Emily," he said softly, "everything changes once you read this." The last candle flickered, bending toward her as if urging her to pick it up. Emily didn't open the envelope. Her fingers lingered on it, brushing the seal as if the paper itself might warn her of what waited inside. The room felt strangely quiet, the birthday candles still flickering beside her, their warm glow suddenly out of place. She pulled in a slow breath, trying to steady the tension rising in her chest. Robert moved toward the window, resting his hand briefly on the frame before turning back to her. His steps were careful, his shoulders heavy with something he had clearly rehearsed 1,000 times. "They wanted to tell you themselves," he said softly. "But life didn't give them the chance." Emily's voice wavered. "Tell me what?" "That your parents came from money," he replied, the words dropping into the silence like stones. "Not just comfortable money, old money. A rich family with influence in New York." She blinked hard, trying to connect the idea with her memories, her mother clipping coupons at the kitchen table, her father working double shifts, the nights they counted every dollar before bills were due. Nothing about her upbringing hinted at wealth. "That makes no sense," she whispered. "Why would they hide that? Why leave it? Robert returned to his seat, exhaling deeply as he lowered himself down. He opened the folder again and pulled out a faded photograph, placing it gently before her. In it, her parents stood in front of a Manhattan townhouse, hands intertwined, smiles warm, yet shadowed by something unspoken. "They walked away," he said, "because staying meant being silenced. They discovered something their family wanted buried." Emily frowned, the air tightening around her. "Buried? Like what?" "A secret," he said, choosing the word carefully. "A secret tied to a betrayal that shattered generations of that family. Your parents refused to be part of it." Her heart thudded, slow and heavy. She traced her parents' outlines in the photo, noticing the tension in the way her mother's hand gripped her father's. "And they died because of this?" Her voice came out barely audible. Robert looked at her with eyes full of grief he'd carried for years. "Your parents tried to protect you from the consequences of knowing the truth. They believed keeping distance was the only way." Emily glanced down at the envelope again, its seal unbroken. "What's inside?" she whispered. "Answers," he said quietly. "But once you read them, Emily, nothing will be the same." The envelope lay between them like a doorway she wasn't sure she wanted to cross. Emily held the envelope for several seconds before setting it gently beside the photograph. Her pulse thudded unevenly, each beat louder than the last. She didn't open it yet. Couldn't. Instead, she folded her hands together, grounding herself as her grandfather watched her with quiet patience. "What exactly did they discover?" she asked, her voice steadier than she expected. Robert paused, rubbing his thumb across a dent in the table's wooden surface. "It started long before your parents were born," he said. "Your mother's family, the Whitmores, built their fortune generations ago. Old banking money, investments, real estate. But great wealth often comes with deep shadows." Emily sat up straighter. She had never heard the name Whitmore in her life, yet it spun through her mind with unsettling familiarity, as if it had always been circling just beyond reach. "Shadows," she repeated. He nodded slowly. "There was a scandal in the family, one buried quietly. A business partner ruined. A betrayal driven by greed. The Whitmores covered it up for decades, and when your parents came across documents exposing the truth, they wanted the wrongdoing acknowledged." Emily's breath caught. "They confronted the family." "They tried," Robert said, "but their insistence made them a threat. Your grandparents on your mother's side, your biological ones, were furious. Not with the truth itself, but with the idea of losing control, losing reputation." Emily felt a coldness seep into her spine. "So they cut my parents off." "They did more than that," Robert replied softly. "They made sure your parents understood they were no longer welcome. Every door closed, every connection severed, and your parents chose freedom, integrity, and anonymity over wealth tainted by corruption." Emily's throat tightened. She imagined her young parents starting over with nothing, walking away from privilege to raise her in modest apartments and quiet neighborhoods where no one knew their history. "And the trust fund?" she asked. "That was your parents' compromise," he explained. "They set it up after you were born, money they managed to keep separate from the family. Money they hoped would give you a future without the Whitmore influence." Emily looked down at the envelope again. Her fingers brushed the seal, the paper cool beneath her touch. "What's in here?" she whispered. "A letter from your mother," Robert said. His voice cracked for the first time. "Written the week before the accident. She wanted you to read it when you turned 25. Emily felt her breath tremble as she slid her nail under the seal, but just before she opened it, she froze. A soft knock echoed from the front door, sharp enough to cut the room's silence. Robert stiffened immediately. "Were you expecting someone?" Emily asked. He shook his head, dread flickering in his eyes. The knock came again, firmer this time. The knock echoed again through the small house, sharper this time, carrying a tension that made Emily straighten in her chair. The envelope trembled slightly between her fingers before she set it back on the table. Robert's expression shifted. His jaw tightened, and something like old fear flickered across his eyes. "Stay here," he murmured. Emily rose halfway. "Grandpa." "It's fine," he said, though his voice didn't quite match the word. He moved toward the door with slow, cautious steps. Emily watched him cross the living room, her pulse pounding unevenly. The birthday decorations suddenly felt childish against the growing weight in the air. The wind outside pressed against the windows, rattling faintly, as though warning her to brace herself. Robert opened the door just a few inches. A man stood on the porch, tall, dressed in a dark wool coat that looked too expensive for this neighborhood. The porch light cast sharp shadows across his face, highlighting the tension in his jaw and the faint wetness of drizzle clinging to his hair. He held a leather briefcase at his side, the kind only corporate lawyers or wealthy heirs carried. "Mr. Carter?" the man asked calmly. Robert hesitated before answering. "Yes." Emily's stomach tightened. Carter wasn't her grandfather's last name. It was her mother's maiden name, a name he avoided for decades. "I'm here on behalf of the Whitmore estate," the man continued. His voice carried a rehearsed politeness, but there was something cold beneath it. "We understand today is Emily's 25th birthday. There are matters that require her presence." Emily froze. Robert stepped into the doorway, blocking the man's view inside. "She's not going anywhere with you." The man's eyes sharpened. "This isn't optional. The family wishes to speak with her regarding her inheritance." Emily felt heat bloom in her chest, fear, confusion, disbelief. She took a step closer, just enough to hear more clearly. "What inheritance?" Robert asked. The man lifted his briefcase slightly. "Financial matters and unresolved business left by her parents." Robert's hand tightened on the doorframe. "Tell them to send documents. She's not meeting anyone until we say so." The man didn't flinch. "Then tell Emily that the Whitmores will not wait another year." Before Robert could answer, Emily's voice broke through the tension. "Why now?" she asked. The man finally looked past Robert, spotting her behind him. Their eyes met, his steady, hers shaking. "Because," he said calmly, "the truth your parents tried to hide can no longer stay buried." A gust of cold air pushed through the doorway, tugging at Emily's hair. The man stepped back. "We'll be in touch." Robert shut the door, hard. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The quiet pressed in from every side. Emily swallowed. "Grandpa, what do they want from me?" Robert looked at her, the truth heavy in his eyes. "Everything we tried to protect you from." Robert moved away from the door slowly, as if the weight of the man's words had aged him another decade in seconds. Emily stood near the table, hands clasped tightly together, the unopened envelope now feeling like a pulse in the room. The house, once warm with quiet celebration, felt suddenly too small, too fragile to hold the truth pressing against its walls. "Grandpa," she whispered, "you knew they might come back, didn't you?" He ran a hand over his face, exhaling with a heaviness that made his shoulders sag. "I hoped they wouldn't. I prayed the Whitmores would leave you alone. But I knew. Once you turned 25, the trust, the documents, everything would trigger again." Emily sank into her chair. "Trigger what?" "Their claim over you," he said. "Their belief that the Whitmore bloodline belongs under their control. It's always been about legacy to them, power, appearances." She stared at him, confusion twisting into something sharper. "But I don't even know these people." "That doesn't matter to them," he replied. "Your birth matters. Your mother walking away mattered, and now your inheritance matters, much more than you think." Emily pressed her palms against her knees, grounding herself. "What exactly is in the trust fund, Grandpa?" Robert hesitated. His silence alone made her stomach tighten. "Tell me," she pushed. "It's not just money," he said finally. "Your parents arranged for assets to be transferred to you when you turned 25. Properties, shares, things they protected from the Whitmores before they left New York." Emily blinked. "Protected? From their own family?" "Yes," he said, voice low. "Because they feared the Whitmores would use you someday, use your name, your inheritance, anything of value, to maintain their power." Emily felt a wave of nausea rise. She had lived her whole life unaware that she was connected to a wealthy family, let alone one capable of this kind of manipulation. Robert reached for her hand, his grip warm but trembling. "Your parents wanted you free. They wanted you raised with dignity, not ownership." Emily nodded slowly, absorbing the words. A soft ache pressed against her ribs, the grief of losing parents she barely remembered now mingling with the knowledge that they'd fought battles she had never known existed. She glanced at the envelope again. "Should I read it?" she whispered. Robert looked at it with both fear and longing. "I think you need to." Emily picked up the envelope, running her thumb along the seal. The paper felt fragile, almost sacred. She inhaled, exhaled, then opened it carefully. The first line of her mother's handwriting made her breath shatter. Before she could read further, a sudden vibration buzzed across the table. A phone. Robert's. He looked at the screen, expression darkening. "Who is it?" Emily asked. He swallowed. "The Whitmores." Robert let the phone vibrate in his hand until it finally went silent. He set it face down on the table, as if even seeing the name on the screen could summon something unwelcome. Emily held her mother's letter halfway unfolded, her fingers trembling slightly. The ink seemed to blur as her eyes tried and failed to settle. "Grandpa," she murmured, "what if reading this makes everything worse?" Robert looked at her gently, the kind of look that carried decades of quiet love. "Sometimes knowing the truth hurts less than running from it." Emily nodded, though uncertainty still tightened her chest. She lowered her eyes to the letter again, letting the inked words slowly come into focus. "My beautiful Emily, if you're reading this, it means you've grown into the woman I always hoped you'd become. Brave enough to face a story I never wanted you to inherit." Her throat closed. She read the next lines in silence, her eyes scanning slowly. The letter spoke of love, fear, and the impossible choice her parents had faced. The Whitmores had tried to force them into silence, threatening to cut off support, reputation, even family ties if they questioned the old betrayal buried within the estate. Her parents refused and walked away with nothing but a chance to raise her in peace. Emily stopped reading. Her breath shook. "They didn't just leave," she said quietly. "They were pushed out." Robert nodded. "Your parents chose a clean conscience over comfort. That kind of choice always comes at a cost." Emily wiped at the corner of her eye, but no tear fell, only the pressure of one. She folded the letter carefully, almost reverently, and set it beside the photo of her parents. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why wait until my 25th birthday to come after me?" Robert leaned back, his gaze drifting toward the dark window. "Because at 25, half of the assets your parents locked away officially transfer into your name. The Whitmores want control of that wealth. But more than that, they want control of you, the last link to your parents' rebellion." A chill ran down her arms. "Emily," Robert's voice softened, "you don't owe them anything. Not your presence, not your forgiveness, not your legacy." Before she could answer, her own phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, an unknown New York number. Her stomach dropped. "They're trying to reach you now," Robert said. The call ended. A moment later, a text appeared. "We need to meet. Your parents left things unfinished. It's time you came home." Emily stared at the message, pulse hammering. Home. The word felt foreign. "Grandpa," she whispered, "I've never even met these people." "And maybe that was the blessing," he replied. She looked at the envelope again, then at the phone, then at the front door. "I need to know the rest," she said softly. "All of it." Robert inhaled deeply, bracing himself. "Then there's something I haven't told you yet," he said. "Something your parents feared more than the Whitmores' influence." Emily froze. "What is it?" she asked. Robert looked at her with eyes full of a truth he'd buried for too long. "There's another reason they hid you." Emily felt the air shift as Robert spoke those words. "Another reason they hid you." It landed like a cold echo in her chest. She slowly set her mother's letter down, her fingers tightening around its edges. "Grandpa, what reason?" she asked, her voice barely holding steady. Robert hesitated, rubbing his palms together as if warming hands that had suddenly gone cold. He stared at the table, then at her, the truth pressing heavily behind his eyes. "Your parents weren't just protecting you from the Whitmores," he said. "They were protecting you from someone inside that family, someone who didn't want you born." Emily stared at him, stunned, frozen. "What do you mean, didn't want me born?" He swallowed. "Your mother's older brother, your uncle, Ethan Whitmore." The name meant nothing to her, yet it sent a strange shiver down her spine. "He was the one who orchestrated the cover-up your parents found," Robert continued. "The financial betrayal, the ruined partner, the missing accounts. He rose in the family by burying the truth." Robert's voice tightened. Your parents threatened to expose him. Emily's breath quickened. So he pushed them out? He pushed them out, Robert said softly, and made sure the family stayed loyal to him. Emily's stomach twisted. And me? Why would he care about me? Because your parents kept records, Robert said, copies of documents that tie him directly to the betrayal. He still believes, that the evidence may surface through you. Emily felt the room tilt slightly, as if she had stepped into a past she never lived but somehow inherited. So he thinks I have something, she whispered. He thinks you might, Robert said. Because he never found everything your parents took with them when they left New York. Emily closed her eyes, the weight settling on her shoulders with a frightening clarity. So he's coming for me now. Robert reached across the table, his hand warm, steady. He's coming to control the narrative. But you're not alone. You have choices. You have people who love you. A soft vibration buzzed again. Her phone. Another message. Emily, we need to talk. I'm your Uncle Ethan. This conversation is not optional. Her chest tightened. Grandpa, she whispered, what am I supposed to do? Robert held her gaze, voice low but resolute. You decide whether you face them or whether we disappear again. The house had grown impossibly quiet, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Emily stared at her phone, her uncle's message glowing like a warning. The weight of her parents' past, the Whitmore name, the inheritance, everything pressed against her at once. Robert stood slowly, bracing a hand on the table. Emily, you don't have to respond, not tonight, not under pressure. But if I don't, she whispered, they'll keep coming. He nodded, reluctantly. Yes, they will. Emily paced the small living room, her hands brushing against old family photographs on the wall. Pictures of birthdays, school plays, summer trips. A life built far from New York, far from the Whitmore Empire. A life her parents crafted to protect her. Her voice quivered. Why does it feel like choosing either path means losing something? Robert watched her carefully. Because it does. But one choice finally gives you control. She stopped walking, turning toward him. What would you do? He hesitated. I would choose the truth. Your parents spent their last years trying to bring light to something dark. If you run, the darkness wins. Emily exhaled shakily. She looked down at her mother's letter resting on the table, the photo beside it, their smiles soft and brave. Her mother's handwriting felt like a hand on her shoulder. They wanted me to know the truth, she murmured, even if it hurt. Robert nodded. They trusted you with it. Emily picked up her phone again. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Fear twisted inside her, but something steadier rose beneath it. Resolve, maybe even the first flicker of courage she didn't realize she had. I'll meet him, she said finally. Robert inhaled sharply. Emily, are you sure? No, she said honestly. But I need answers. And I'm tired of being afraid of a family I've never even met. She typed a message slowly, deliberately. We meet on my terms. Neutral place. Tomorrow. She hit send before she could rethink it. Almost immediately, Ethan responded, Agreed. Noon. Manhattan. I'll send the address. You will want to hear what I have to say. Emily lowered the phone, her pulse pounding. Manhattan. The city her parents escaped. The city where the truth waited. Robert stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Whatever happens next, he said softly, you won't face it alone. Emily nodded, gripping the letter in her other hand. Tomorrow would change everything. Months later, Emily stood on the quiet terrace of a Manhattan community center, overlooking the city her parents once fled. The winter wind brushed across her face, carrying the distant hum of taxis and the soft glow of lights reflected on the Hudson. In her hands, she held the framed letter, her mother's final words, now displayed on the wall inside the building that bore her parents' names. The Carter Whitmore Foundation for Integrity and Youth Support. It hadn't been easy. Meeting Ethan had unearthed old wounds, hidden documents, and a history twisted by fear and ambition. But facing him also revealed something her parents always believed in. Truth had weight, and healing required courage. In the end, Ethan had been forced to confront the evidence her parents preserved, evidence Emily finally chose to make public. The scandal that once destroyed families now opened the door for accountability, change, and long-awaited forgiveness. Robert stepped beside her, leaning lightly on the railing. "They would be proud of you," he said softly. Emily smiled, not with triumph but with peace. "I just finished what they started." She looked through the glass at the new space inside. Shelves of books, framed photographs, rows of seats for young people who would learn not just about finance, but about dignity, honesty, and the strength of choosing what's right over what's easy. A place where her parents' legacy lived, not as a secret, but as a light. Her thumb brushed the corner of the letter again. The ink faded, but still warm with intention. The past no longer felt like a chain. It felt like a compass. Robert placed a hand over hers. "You built something good from something broken." Emily nodded, her eyes lifting toward the city skyline. The Whitmore name no longer frightened her. Money no longer defined her, and the story she once inherited in fear had become one she now carried with purpose. "I'm free," she whispered, feeling the truth of it settle deep inside her. A new beginning, quiet, honest, and finally hers. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this heart-touching story. Tell us in the comments which moment touched you the most. Subscribe and turn on the bell to receive more stories that inspire and transform. Leave a like if you believe in the invisible strength of kindness, dignity, and family. And thank you for being part of this community that believes in stories with soul.